There is nothing quite like Warhammer 40k universe. That's why the Space Marine games are so sick and why they are loved by so many across the world. Space Marines are iconic, and it's freaking amazing to be able to play as an Ultramarine and Space Marine too. But have you ever wanted to play as a Space Marine in VR? Well, have I got news for you. There is a fully licensed Space Marine VR game which you can go and play right now and fully become an Ultramarine serving the Emperor's will. Zero Latency is a VR game experience which has over 150 locations worldwide and have launched a Space Marine VR game alongside the launch of Space Marine 2 called Space Marine VR Defenders of Avarax. I was lucky enough to be invited to play this game at Zero Latency located in Le Mans Dandenong in Melbourne, along with Far Cry VR and their own made title Outbreak, and it was an epic time. So I'm going to go through each of these experiences with you, starting with Space Marine 2, and just go through how freaking amazing these were. So starting with Space Marine. Now this one is by far one of the coolest and most visually appealing of the 3 VR games that I played that night. And rightly so, you're playing as a Space Marine. So basically imagine yourself like walking around with this, you know, like just feeling massive walking around the space. Now, I don't know if you guys have played VR before in the past, or like got a VR headset. Like I've got an Oculus myself, and the one thing you'll find about Oculus or just VR experiences is you're kind of restricted to the spaces that you're in. Now, I know with the newer experiences and newer things you can get at home now, they kind of adapt to your house, but this is just on a whole nother level. So you've got like the VR headset on and you're not tethered to anything. So you're in just this big empty warehouse, big empty room, and you're not tethered to anything, and you're wearing this VR headset with up to 7 other people in the squad that you're playing with, and you're just walking around like an empty space. But when you've got this VR headset on and the headphones on, you can't see anything else, you can't hear anything else, all you can see is the world around you, and it's bloody amazing. It's actually come such a long way from, you know, from when I first started, and just being able to walk around the space makes you feel a lot more immersed in it. Now, obviously, you're not lugging around some big, weighty armor. It does a very good job of making you feel like you're in the space. The graphics were really good, although it did have a few bugs that I was told that they're still working through. Obviously, it's still a new thing with the VR, but you don't really notice them too much anyway. Because you're carrying around a physical gun, like, you're basically limited to, obviously, guns. Sorry, no chainsaws, but obviously if you're swinging things around with other people with VR headsets on, it probably could get a little bit dangerous. But the gun experience is really good. Aiming down sights with a bolter and using the gun is a little bit tricky, and it's probably not the most accurate situation, but generally most Space Marines shoot off the hip anyway, from what I've seen. But it's a really cool experience. As you're playing the game, you can use different games like bolters, flamethrowers, plasma rifles. I can't remember if that's what they're called, and the overall time is great. In this experience, you're playing as a Space Marine, of a squad of Space Marines defending Avarax, and basically you're fighting off hordes and hordes of Tyranids. So it turns into a bit of an arcade shoot 'em up where you're just basically fighting off waves and waves. Your gun, you can pull the reload or the pump on it, and then that turns into a grenade launcher, and you can shoot the grenades and pretty much explode mountains of Tyranids. Throughout the entire experience, you're being scored against your teammates. Headshots give you extra points, and basically you're just trying to kill as many Tyranids as you can. And we did really well. I think we ranked number 2 or number 1 in Australia for the VR experience, so we're pretty happy with that result. But overall, this was a really good time, and honestly, probably one of the coolest experiences in the VR set, just being able to play as a Space Marine. Now, there was a couple of little things, and you kind of experienced this with all of the VR experiences, is whenever there's ramps or anything like that, your brain thinks that you need to walk up the ramp, and so you'll take big steps to get up it, but obviously there's no ramp there, so it's a little bit weird to get your head around that, and it takes a bit of getting used to. But the way they design the levels is so tricky. So in your mind, you're in this big open space, but you're actually just walking around the 4 corners of the space. And because there are 8 players in total, and those 8 players have been divided into two teams, you're actually moving around each other, but they make the virtual space look like you're standing right next to each other or like very close to each other, but you're actually on opposite sides of the rooms. But it's just making use of the whole space within the whole virtual world to make it feel really cool. There are a few things which are a bit jarring. So if you get close to other players, like these big red barriers come up, and sirens blare off in your ears, but you get used to that pretty quickly. And obviously walls do the same thing, so obviously you don't run into walls, but overall it's freaking cool. So the next thing I did was played Far Cry VR. Now this one was really cool, the immersion was quite good, and there was a bit more of a storyline to this one. This one felt more like an arcadey shoot 'em up kind of situation. It felt more like I was playing a VR experience. And so I wasn't really into it that much. You could choose between using a gun, like a AK-47, or a crossbow. For whatever reason, the crossbow is absolutely useless, as expected. So you're just basically using the AK-47, which gets a little bit boring after a bit. And basically you're just shooting bandits the entire time, and it gets a bit repetitive. And there's a few areas where you're kind of just walking through space for a few times. There's a couple good spots where like a shark will swim through, and you got to like shoot people like on different things and different platforms around you, which is a really cool experience. But overall, I wasn't as impressed with the Far Cry VR experience as I was with Space Marine or Outbreak, which is the next one I'm going to talk about. Outbreak, absolutely, it was the first one I did, and it was probably the best of the three. So Space Marine was cool, visually appealing, you're playing as a Space Marine. However, Outbreak, just the VR, it suited the VR experience the best, and the zombie shooting was probably the best overall. It felt a lot more tactical, and the experience just felt really cool. It was like basically playing COD Zombies, but just in a virtual reality. There's a lot more guns to choose from, a lot more variability, and the maps were a lot more bigger and drawn out. And so out of the three, I'd probably recommend doing this one the most, because this is definitely the best one, but Space Marine 2 would probably be a very close second. This one was really cool as well. So the staff members would get this like big plastic arm, and they'd creep up on you and like try and rub your leg to scare you when you're a certain part of the map. And it does a very good job of scaring you, because you're fully immersed. Like people would talk to you and you wouldn't hear them talking to you, because you're so like involved in this game, or like with the headphones on and all the noises. And they don't know what you're looking at. All they can see is you're looking at a wall shooting stuff. So they'll come up and rub your leg and you'll freak out. So I had a good time doing that with the other group, watching them play. But it was a really, really good time. And so probably out of the three, it was probably my favorite. And I did happen to get the best score out of everyone that I was playing with, so I was pretty happy with that, pretty stoked. But if you are looking for something that's a little bit more scary, something a little bit more intense, this one was definitely the way to go. You could switch your weapons between either using like an assault rifle or a shotgun. The shotgun was really handy close range, and you just switch on the fly. So you'd make use of like shooting them, the zombies hit them, like you get extra points for headshots, and they would die quicker for headshots. So you'd try and get the zombies at long range with your rifle. When they came up close, you switch to your shotgun and just blast them, which was really cool. Other things would appear on the map like miniguns and special shotguns and bigger rifles. It was just overall, I think, a much better and bigger experience. Also a space where you're flying in a helicopter, which was a bit wacky, and also you have to walk across this ledge, which was a few people tend to almost like fall off because you feel like you're in space, but for me, I just kind of like kept reminding myself, no, this is VR. And this is also when we first experienced the ledges. So you'll go to walk up like a ramp, and then you'd take a big step and like just like you're kind of preempting this big step and like stomp your foot on the ground and go, oh, hang on, no, it's not real. And the whole feeling of like moving up while you're not actually moving up, a little bit jarring, but you kind of get over that pretty quickly. The only thing that I don't like about these experiences is that they don't last for very long. But that being said, there's only so much time I myself can like do VR. You're walking around a lot, you're carrying a gun, you're being very tactical, and you're going full commando on it. And so it is a lot more exercise than just playing a normal video game. So it does have that experience, which is pretty cool. So I'm playing the footage over the top of this, and obviously it doesn't look as good in the replayed footage because it's cropped down, and when they record it as like they record all of it at once. And so when we get the footage back, we're seeing all of it at once. So it doesn't look as good in the recorded footage. It looks a lot better in person, and it definitely looks a lot better when you're actually playing the game than watching other people play the game, because otherwise it just looks like people shooting at a wall. Zero Latency is where these are held. There's lots of locations worldwide, so if you jump on their website, you can check it all out. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It was a really good time, and if you want to check it out, check out Zero Latency. This isn't really sponsored. They did shout us the night to make all this content, so I'm pretty grateful for that. Like, I've already done a couple of videos for it, so my obligation's already done to them, but I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't think it was worthwhile and worth checking out. So if you have enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content, and if you are a big fan of indie games, check out this video, because I go through a few games that I saw at PAX that I thought was really good, and ranked them and kind of rated them and put them all up there, and I think they were probably one of the best ones that I saw. So go and check out that video if you want to see more. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.